Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Rafae Iqbal, and in today's show we'll be discussing two very important topics. The first being India's involvement in terrorism on foreign soil. If you talk about the details of this topic, of course, India has been increasingly accused of involvement in internal affairs of other countries through covert operations aimed at influencing political outcomes. Pakistan has been time and time again highlighting India's involvement in covert killings on Pakistani soil and India's attempt to destabilize the country. The Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, in a new, also accused India's involvement in the assassination of a Sikh leader, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. One of India's allies, the United States, also accused India of involvement in an assassination attempt of a Sikh leader. However, the US law enforcement agencies thwarted this attempt, but nonetheless, they have accused India of being involved and the Indian intelligence agency RAW of being involved in these extrajudicial and extraterritorial killings. India now faces diplomatic pressure from, of course, the Western countries as well. Pakistan had been highlighting this issue since very long, but now there's increasing pressure on India with regards to its covert operations and, of course, the nefarious designs of its intelligence agency. In the second segment, we'll be talking about the Apex Committee meeting. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif vows the eradication of fitna Khawarij from soil. The Prime Minister emphasized the need for a coordinated approach to deal with this menace, involving consensus between the federal and provincial governments. He also said that national interest is supreme and should be kept, of course, as a priority above all politics. The Prime Minister, he also said that hostile elements are running anti-Pakistan propaganda on the internet and social media. And he also highlighted that no compromise will be made on Pakistan's nuclear program. Also, talking about digital propaganda, of course, and he said that efforts will be made to curb this menace as well. We'll be deliberating on all the different aspects regarding these two topics. In the studios, we've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi. Along with that, we've been joined by geopolitical analyst Faisal, and on Skype, we have been joined by Brigadier retired Nawaz. I'd like to thank you all for your time and being part of the conversation, starting from Brigadier Harris. So Pakistan has been highlighting this issue since long, India's involvement in, of course, extrajudicial and extraterritorial killings. Now we hear global voices regarding this. What would you say about that?
Point is that now I would say India is doing what Israel has been doing through its sleeper cells. And that is why now India is adopting the same policy. And I would say now the whole world should know that India is involved in global terrorism and also global financial terrorism, because over $2 billion they have been spending of doing all these activities all over the world. And when we talk about all this, you can see Canada, what happened with the Sikh leader. Then in America, they were trying it, but then of course their CIA and intelligence, they tracked them. Then of course in North Africa, in Maldives operation, presidential election, you know what they have been doing it about. And then of course in Pakistan, India is doing terrorism. Gulbastan Yadev example is all over there. And likewise USA. So the point is, now it is established fact. And Washington Post has confirmed. So it is now the stage is set for Pakistan to again go for proper dossier and blessing disguise that Pakistan become a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council out of the 10 members which they have. So they can play a vital role in the context that now it might be chairing a sanction committee for Al-Qaeda and of course all these terrorist activities which are carried out in Al-Qaeda and so other these terrorist organizations. Issue is that now is the right time. Pakistan must prepare a very aggressive diplomacy and aggressive dossier in coordination with Foreign Office and Ministry of Interior, and they have to put forward to the world, including United Nations. Then we have to go for Islamic OIC, then European Union, everywhere. Gulbastan Yadev example is there is ample exemplification how they have been operating in Pakistan, what all he has been doing, serving naval commander, and he was indicted by the International Court of Justice also. They also agreed. And Indian accepted that he is a serving naval commander. So what is the doubt left? The only thing is, why should we wait for Washington Post report coming up and then we highlight it and then we forget about it? Now is the time we must prepare all these things, and we have to ensure that things are put up at the right forum. The first forum is Islamabad. All the world ambassadors are there, our foreign office, and with the ministry material, they should brief each and everything about what Indian facts and figures. How India is acting as a deep state. That is, we have to understand, particularly in Afghanistan, what all they are doing, how they are involved with the PLA, BLF, there of course we have a Majid Brigade, BNA, then Khorasan Group and TTP Khawarij, how they are manipulating and what are they causing, not only Pakistan, it is a global terrorism. It is really threatening the whole world, and they are following the exact Israeli line. They used to kill, target killing now. In Pakistan, all Kashmiri contact were talking about Kashmir, and they were working in the interest of Kashmiris. They were all targeted, and they killed 20. And Ajit Deval, Amit Shah agreed and accepted. Ajit Deval could not go to the United Nations where the Modi was going because he knew that there is interrogation going on, it might be warrants are issued, and he might be arrested over there. In all these things, if we see, then see how the world is using dual policy. Pakistan is different, and India has a different. Wherever India goes, they criticize Pakistan over involving Kashmir, doing so many things, some flag operations. But we don't talk like this. We should be very clear about it. What Indian policy is now. India is doing state terrorism. India is creating financial terrorism. India, we know what they're going in Balochistan, what they're doing in Pakistan through Afghanistan. We all know, and they have a deep relation with all the state organization. Now is the time we must work very recklessly. We are reluctant to talk and criticize India. We want to have the relationship with Indian, but then there are certain guidelines. Does India has to say Pakistan and India has a dispute on Kashmir? Yes, then we are ready to talk. But if you say no, that is their two tongue and that they have captured Pakistan, there was no dispute, and now we going to go negotiate with the Indians and we go for a business or trade with them, that means we accepted the Indians overpowering Kashmir, and we accept, okay, now we accept it, only we are going to do business. So certain things at national level can't be accepted for sovereign states. And these are the factors why Pakistan is not negotiating with India on trades. And what is India doing in cricket? Just see how aggressive they are, and we are not pushed about it. We are concerned about it, but the way we should be talking about it, we are not very open. We have to very, very of aggressive in Indian policy on these issues, where we as a sovereign state, we have our interest. India wants Pakistan to be subservient to India. India wants its hegemonic design. They take Pakistan as a stumbling block, and that is why they are doing all these problems. But the world has dual reasons. They have their strategic interests, they have their trade interests. They use India as proxy against Pakistan and China. So wherever we have to at least find a one solid line that India should not cross that, whereas it has crossed many years back, at least since 2019, 5th August. So that is the reason I say now is the time. Pakistan must talk it out, openly talk it out, and
Definitely.
use all diplomatic channels.
Boundaries definitely need to be established, and of course, India should be called out for its, of course, crossing of these boundaries, and of course, for its hegemonic designs that we see. For Pitafi, as Brigadier Harris, he talked about India's actions as global terrorism, and we also know that there's a nexus between the ideologies being pursued by India and Israel when they talk about their genocidal and aggressive, and of course, illegal activities. How do you comment on this nexus, and of course India going to any extent to, of course, as Israel has also been doing, to of course they achieve the nefarious designs?
Good question. Thank you very much. Let us first focus on India alone. Of course, you can seek answers to the question about Israel from the next window. Faisal is sitting there, and he will be very happy to actually talk about both. But I think first of all we have to ask certain very serious questions. One, India has been doing it. Of course, it has been following the pattern of Mossad. It was highlighted in this story as well. But the question then is, why is it that this was happening, not only in Canada, in the US, elsewhere, where it left behind trace. And when these incidents were taking place in Pakistan, at that time no flags went up. I remember Tamba's episode was recent, but apart from Tamba's murder, other episodes are astounding because there seems to be a flurry of these episodes. It was planned somewhere in one of the Arab countries, and then, of course, our diaspora or other people, and then they came here and they assassinated various people. At that time, whenever such kind of movement takes place, it usually leaves behind some kind of trail. Why is it that we were not noticing? In this story, Washington Post story, it is also mentioned that there are concerns about counterintelligence at that time, and that's why it is a sensitive subject. It is not a sensitive subject. The questions are very simple. The questions are about accountability. Was it some kind of blind spot that we developed? For example, there are many very serious questions that we have to actually look at. You have seen Srivastava group's story, EU Disinfo Lab. It was unearthed by EU Disinfo Lab, but it went on between 2005 and onwards to 19, and who knows till when. And yet, despite Pakistan being a target of all these campaigns, what were we doing, right? If there were people who were not actually responding to it, and they knew about it, we have to hold them accountable. Similarly, earlier Brigadier Sahab was talking about UN's Pakistan actually going to UNSC. There used to be a story about somebody, two brothers actually dividing various assets of family. The younger brother got the front of a cow, and the elder one got the behind, and that's how one got rich, the other one kept on feeding the beast. So there seems to be a very interesting division of labor between India and Pakistan. When India was elected, with our vote by the way, to the UNSC, and at that time it was decided Pakistan is going to be elected also. At that time, Afghanistan was being vacated by the US, right? And Pakistan was suddenly locked out of UNSC. And now what is happening? Pakistan gets elected to UNSC at the time when Donald Trump is going to be President of America. Last time when he was President, UN was not that relevant. So the question is, who makes these decisions? These are serious accountability questions. If we are not going to answer that, if we are not going to hold people at that time who were making decisions accountable, then we are destined to keep on repeating it. To me, the fact that several Sikhs were killed, and because of that, Pakistan actually was being given a bad name at that time, that our minorities are not secure. Then religious clerics also actually got killed, and at that time we had this fear that it might lead to sectarian war or something of the similar sort. So the enemy comes here, does whatever it wants to, and goes away. And we are actually listening to Washington Post or Guardian now that these things were happening on our soil. These are serious questions. If we are not going to ask it, who else will, right? Of course, what it tells you about India, India has lost all sensibilities. And I think because it has, it is going to suffer a lot. Because the problem with these radical movements or radical parties is that it suspends, their sensibilities are suspended. India is right now like a baby which has huge muscles, but the brain is of a baby. Because of that, it does not know the consequences of its own actions. When those actions take place, every Indian around the world is subjected to huge disrepute. And this is exactly what is happening right now in America, in Europe as well, in UK. Because of that, I think in coming days, India is going to suffer. But my question is, regardless of that, people were killed on my soil. Why were they killed? What were we doing? Who are we going to hold accountable for that?
Well, definitely that's some food for thought. But coming towards Raja Faisal and including his comments as we're talking about accountability and the careless actions by India, as Farrukh Pitafi also mentioned, something of a Frankenstein with a lot of mass but no brain, as careless with their actions. How do you think an accountability mechanism should be in place to hold them accountable for these careless actions?
Well, accountability of today's India, of course, in the current scenario where we are seeing America putting India in front of China, I think that would be really hard for America itself to do it. I mean, what Trump does it in coming days, that would be entirely, I'm curious to watch how they deal with it. And overall, if we look at the modus operandi, which they have been adopting since a long time, I mean, inside domestically, they have been utilizing the gangs to, of course, eliminate any sort of internal threats, be it the Khalistan movement, be it the Hurriyat movement, or be it elsewhere throughout India. They have been utilizing groups of gangs like Goldie Brar gang, Lawrence Bishnoi gang. Them gangs, they were actually mentioned by by Canadian government as well. And when we talk about external, I mean, their mechanism externally, it has outreach to all of the continents, including Africa, including of course Asia and the Western countries, and if we talk about Australia and Americas as well, North America. I mean, examples are in front of everyone. I mean, we very well know, and while talking to one of a very important diplomat from Britain, he has served in past in Kenya. Once he told me about how influential these Indians are in there, and their lobbies, they are very strong within African countries, especially in Kenya, where even the police heads and few of the judges, they get positions just because of their lobbyings, because they have a huge number of investors who invest money in Africa, and that investment of the Indian businessmen, that actually garners their sort of influence within their society, and whatever they want to do, it's so easy for them to do in them countries, especially in Kenya. I'm sure you would be hinting towards what I'm trying to say. There are cases in past that took place, and yes, I believe that there will be a huge hand of the Indians themselves in them cases. And when we talk about the Western countries, I mean, modus operandi reaches to even, of course, creating such an influence through sending in people and intentionally sending in the hardliners in countries like Britain and the North American countries, of course, America and Canada, and even they outreach to the Far East countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, and then they end up in obviously Australia as well. What do? They are slowly and gradually promoting the hate-filled ideology, and they are of course gathering around all of these Khalistan movement people or Kashmiri people, and they are of course implementing their nefarious designs. And when we talk about how they are engaging with the Khalistanis, I mean, it is an open secret that in Britain, Leicestershire is a city where a large number of course, Indian hardliners, they come out every time and they speak against Muslims, they speak against Sikhs, and nobody does anything about it. And when it comes to, of course, why they are in Leicestershire, because it is right next to Birmingham, and in Birmingham, of course, it is considered as the Khalistan movement's hub, and that is why they are, of course, circulating around it. And when it comes to overall situation of how they conduct their activities, one of the cases in which a Sikh leader was murdered. Did you know who murdered that Sikh leader? Them people who murdered him, they were the students from India. And when they were caught, of course, it was, it came to know that they were promised to obviously take them easily to Canada, and in return they have to do a couple of jobs for them, and they have done so. And this is how they are utilizing the people on ground. and they are taking them from India and exporting them to of course the Western countries, and they are terrorizing the whole world. So it is the export of terrorism which is going on by the of course Indians. And when crucially comes towards India, of course they are utilizing all the available avenues. Since the Shastra university's speech, I mean, they had said that they will be utilizing every available possibility to of course wage a war from every corridor that is available against Pakistan.
Defensive offense, yeah.
Defensive offense. And when we talk about of course hybrid war, they are, as Farrukh has rightly pointed out, EU Disinfo Lab, I mean, in which more than 700 fake newspapers, news portals, they were going on. And even there was Geneva Times, Geneva GT. Geneva Times was the name of one of the TV channels. I mean, it did not appear anywhere else, but they had hired the of course the European anchors for it, so that it gets more legitimacy. And the lobbying they were doing it through of course GT. And when it comes to Australia, when it comes to other countries, they had all of the news portals. They were obviously promoting hate against Pakistan. They were of course generating content against Pakistan when it comes to Balochistan. I mean, there were so many fake organizations for women rights, for human rights, for all of them, and they were portraying as if they are from Balochistan, but they had no ground standing in Balochistan. And they were of course propagating against Pakistan that these are the people who are getting affected by the government itself or the security forces itself. But on ground it wasn't the case at all. And they have been waging war through hybrid means. And at the same time, there was another way which they employed in Pakistan, and that was related to of course few of the criminal factions from within Pakistan they hired through people like Kulbhushan Jadhav. And who knows, there are more Kulbhushan Jadhavs who are still in Pakistan and who are of course searching for these people who for money they can do anything. And don't forget, you have so many vulnerable Afghan citizens, criminal mind Afghan citizens in Pakistan as well, who in past they were used and in different criminal activities, and they were involved in criminal activities. And it's easier for them to of course buy them with hefty amounts. And when somebody sees a good amount of money, of course they will be conducting their activities. The assassination that took place, the assassinations them took place in Pakistan, most of the times they were like shoot and run cases, in which of course motorcyclists, they were just after shooting they were running away. And it is the simple case of the right people on ground who are making sure who to buy and who not to. The way they wanted to of course apply it in New York, they couldn't do it there because they eventually got through to someone who himself was FBI's agent, and he was a spook himself. So he figured it out that this is what is going on, and that's how they got caught. But in Pakistan, of course, they were lucky enough to find these kind of people, and most of the people who were coming into Pakistan, they were actually from Afghanistan, and they had the previous come and goes from Pakistan, so they knew how the mechanism works, and so they were taking all of these monies. And when it comes to money, I mean, everyone talks about that Pakistan was of course in a sort of in front of the world. It was shown as if terror financing and all of these things and FATF, and we were in the grey list, and India did its level best to of course put us into into shame, but we came out of it. Here is India that obviously through Hundi, through Hawala, they have been of course pumping money into not only Pakistan but different countries to pay all of these people to carry out these activities, and nobody does anything about it. Now I would be expecting that if Americans are of course probing these cases, if there are examples in Pakistan of probe of these cases, why not FATF digs deep into it, that what kind of mechanisms they were employing in terms of financing terrorism. I mean, this is how they were, of course, financing it. And yes, Farrukh is right about it. One of the Middle Eastern countries, the Gulf country, that was wrongly used by India, and I think by now they themselves know what kind of activities India was involved in their country. And I believe if the bread basket is not the issue, then they should be raising their heads up and seeking the answers from the Indians.
Definitely, very important points raised. Brigadier Harris, I'd like your comments as Raja Faisal talked about how India has been exploiting Afghanistan's soil to carry out its nefarious designs and, of course, destabilize the region. When we talk about the region, we know a lot of efforts are being put in for Central Asian connectivity. We know the SEO is being strengthened. The Belt and Road Initiative is now entering a new phase. CPEC, a flagship project of the BRI, is now entering its second phase. With all these developments going on in the region, of course, India's attempts to destabilize as, of course, US positioning India in front of China. Do you think a regional effort should be made to keep India in check as well?
Definitely. You see, the point is, I now rate, and of course, for the last so many years, India is doing a global terrorism and global financial terrorism. They, I think, spent about $1.44 billion for financial terrorism. They're passing on to USA, to Canada, North Africa, Maldives, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Qatar. You know, in Qatar, 9 naval persons were given death penalty for doing spying in Qatar. And then Mr. Modi had to rush to Qatar, personally apologize, and get them brought back to the country. Just imagine. That's what the level of these activities, terrorism they are doing in India, but everything get a clean sheet. That is very, very clear, unfair. And now, you see, Pakistan, Afghanistan is a very, very important point. And India has the best ingress over there. Their embassy in Kabul, where all the BLA, BLF, BNA, Majid Brigade, Khorasan Group, and Khawarij TTB, they all get together there, all planning is done, and then they are dished out to Balochistan and KPK. That is the problem, and that's why the Chief Army Staff, I think, very clearly highlighted that we must go for Azm-e-Istikam, and then the whole nation should stand united. That was the purpose. But the point is, what are we doing? In Pakistan, the biggest problem is whenever some incident occurs, we create human cry, and after about 2 weeks, we forget. That's all we have. And Indians, they keep pursuing everything. And they don't let any opportunity to go where they can put Pakistan on the mat. That's the problem. And the most important problem is Afghanistan issue, where Americans are involved, European Union is involved, India, we know what all the India is doing it. Even China is giving a lot of money because they're taking a lot of minerals from there. And Pakistan is suffering. No Chinese person in Kabul is killed, not even one. And Chinese in Balochistan and Pakistan, in Karachi, they're killed. Just imagine. What are the reasons? Because they don't want CPEC should come up, Indians and their other masters. And that, of course, Gwadar Port is operationalized, then we have the whole of North Africa and Middle East market available over there. And then it suits Russia, Central Asia, Afghanistan peaceful, through Afghanistan connectivity, and then we get it. And like with China, in 8 days from Kashgar to Gwadar, it takes 90 days from sea route when their goods they reach to China. So things are very, very clear. Being Islamic country, nuclear country, strategic location, battle-hardened army, they don't want Pakistan to be economically prosperous so that we can take decisions in our national interest. That is the total story, and how we negate it, how make it impossible, that is our gameplay. And we are not doing much about it. We have to behave like an sovereign Islamic nuclear state. We never behave like this. We are so apologetic about Kashmir. India won't talk about everything. Even Kashmir, they say Pakistan is doing everything here. And we don't talk about Kashmir. We're very careful. We use our very measured response, which is not designed. We have to tell the world what is happening and how things can be improved. In this, our region, we must get hold of the security concern bring everybody together, either in China, in Pakistan, or Central Asian state, and then sit down all the security heads and work out a security plan to at least make Afghanistan peaceful so that the economic prosperity of this region continue.
Well, definitely in here at PTV World, we have been highlighting this issue a lot. With that, sir, I'd like to include comments from Farrukh Pitafi as well, as we're running a little short on time. Farrukh, as the conversation has shaped up so far, what would your comment be on, firstly, the FATF probe into India's actions, and secondly, their involvement in digital terrorism, as this is something that Pakistan has been facing a lot very recently?
Everything thing that India has done, it has left behind evidence. And this is quite visible. This is the point of being arrogant, right? You think that you can get away with murder, and repeatedly it has gotten away with murder. Similarly, their troll armies are everywhere. Similarly, their propaganda campaigns even target the US and elsewhere, right? So it is all known. But the biggest problem, if you look at how India has benefited from an age that we also suffered in, that was war and terror. But even before war and terror, Islamophobia, and this goes back to the question that you earlier asked me, the Israeli-Indian nexus. You know, at that time, Islamophobia actually brought these countries together back in 1990s. And India actually just used Israel and ran with it. What did it do? First of all, of course, there was clash of civilizations. Because of that, they said now Islam is going to be the threat, and then China, and India is going to be an ally. And after that, what they did was they started having incursions in Western intelligence agencies. The first one to fall, by the way, there's huge incursion, and it is under investigation, is MI6. There they got their incursion, and at that time, many of the so-called terrorists that were sent, or jihadists who were sent to Sarajevo, elsewhere, they later on became huge part of the campaign that brought Pakistan bad repute. For example, Daniel Pearl's murderer was recruited allegedly by MI6, and he was sent there to Bosnia, and later on he came to so-called Afghan resistance, and at that time he ended up murdering a foreign journalist on Pakistani soil, and he was also released from India. So India has huge influence there. After MI6, they tried to have incursion into CIA. CIA also has a small contingent of Indian influentials, right? And that continues, and you can see the struggle. At this moment, they are on the losing side, but I don't know whether they will be able they will be easily defeated or not. But because of that, in the end, they ended up having some influence in my beloved country also. And this is the biggest concern, because if you are losing sight of what was happening at that time, then the real moment when it was happening, if you did not take notice, my father used to say, if you are in a boxing ring, you walk out of it, and then you remember that you had to throw this punch and you would have won. Beta, just punch yourself, because now the time has passed, right? We have this evidence. We can try India. We can raise voice. But that moment when they did it, there were people who did not take notice. This is the biggest problem. Balochi, Baloch people, people on social media actually pretending to be Baloch. The simple thing is, I'm a Baloch. So I understand passable Balochi. The first thing you do is converse with them in Balochi, and then see how quickly they scarper. This has happened at least a dozen times in my case. Right. When somebody was pretending to be a Baloch, and I just struck a conversation in Balochi, and they could not sustain it, and they ran away. So this is how things actually can be fought. If you have intelligence, if you have smarts, you can defeat everybody. But if your own side, somebody in your own side actually keeps on dragging you down, that becomes a problem.
Definitely. Well, Faisal, your comments as well, as the conversation has shaped up so far.
Yeah, I think on the urgent basis, what Pakistan needs to do about India as well is that if they can take us to FATF, we should take them to FATF as well, and we should this time around take the, of course, support of US, support of Canada, support of Britain this time around, because they are equally victims of Indian terrorism as we are.
And of course, if probed into, I'm sure there are other victims as well in the world. That brings us to the second topic as well, as we're talking about the security situation. And of course, an Apex committee meeting was held. The Prime Minister emphasized, of course, the need for a coordinated approach in, of course, countering this menace. Brigadier Harris, amidst efforts for economic revival and economic uplift, how crucial would you term this Apex committee meeting and, of course, the results that came out of it?
I think this is the most important meeting which was held. The point is, now is the right time. We have really suffered a lot. There is no doubt about it. Military casualties, civilian casualties, and of course economic suffering, we have done it. And now I think the time when we talk about Azm Istikam, this has to be done in letter and spirit. That is the issue. And it is not possible unless the whole nation stands behind it, number one, and the whole illegal spectrum which we talk about it, that has been controlled ruthlessly. How the money is coming to Hawala and Hundi, how the money is coming through narcotics and smuggling, then of course the illegal smuggled vehicle and money coming through all ways. Because this money is the main crux, it's a root cause. If it doesn't go to the terrorist organizations, they will never be able to do their work properly. One thing. And second, of course, we must use all element of national powers. That is important. Our finance ministry, defense ministry, State Bank of Pakistan, excise and taxation, everybody to work in consonance so that they really done a coordinated effort along with NECTA has to be made more effective. So that the all intelligence agency, they work together. The information is brought to NECTA, the all analysis is done, then it is all collated and then it is distributed to all right person. Now everybody is working at their own, ISI, MI, FBI, whatever the intelligence are there, they are working indirectly. So this is what we are having a problem, and that's why we say, and then criminal justice system. The moment somebody is caught, he has to be tried immediately and then punished urgently. While of course in ensuring the justice is being done, the way we do it penalty courts, anti-terrorist courts and special courts have been trained. That was decided in 2014 National Action Plan, and that's what on condition 2 years were given from the military courts. Then during this period, these courts will be trained and they might be held even in cantonments to give them protection and also to keep the name of the judge secret so nobody would know who has punished him. But nothing has happened. And madrasa reform, still you see 16, 18,000 are registered, remaining unregistered, and now we've got society, the registration will be on again. There was a problem because we have done in FATF that they'll properly registered. And then safe cities. Why we have not been able to ensure the main major cities of KPK, Balochistan, and even we don't now started of safety in Karachi. I was a home minister and I ensured before I leave it was approved and now it is already on the way. So these are the problem we have. I think for that what is so difficult? We all the ministers, Prime Minister of Pakistan, decide once and then implement the instructions. All instructions, orders are there, they need to be implemented. If we do all these things, rest assured our military forces, our civil armed forces are enough. They're professionally competent to handle it. But the problem is that you keep killing, you keep getting killed, and the another people coming from across the border, they're coming again. So that has to be sealed properly. Only then you can isolate. Isolate Afghanistan, TTP, and those who in Pakistan, see what happens. Now you must have seen the audio leaks of Noor Wali Masood and of course Haji Ghat. They were talking now the terrorists want to go back, and then Noor Wali saying, no, keep them here because they have lost confidence in their leadership now. They know they are having a big pushy time, they are having enjoying the money and perks and privileges, and they people are just living the barren mountains. So now they are at the run, and we are killing a lot of now this Khawarij. But the only thing is the nation stand behind it. We have to defeat enemy narrative. Please ensure and always say strong military is a symbol of strong federation. And that is what they have realized. They have to weaken the military so that they can overpower their own aims and objectives.
Definitely. A very important thing that said, a strong military is a strong federation. Raja Faisal, one more statement that came out from the Prime Minister in this Apex Committee meeting. National interest is supreme above any kind of politics. What do you say about that?
That's it, and this is the ultimate, statement that should always persist in Pakistan's political fabric. When it comes to, of course, Pakistan right now, we have time and again talked about it, that when it comes to security, when it comes to aspects like economy, there should be a political consensus by all of the political parties. And here we are. I mean, 10 years ago, we achieved that consensus. Of course, at that time, PMLN's government and, of course, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was, of course, part of it. And all of the political parties at that time, they gathered around the Prime Minister, and the consensus, the political consensus was gained, and through which, of course, Pakistan hit the terrorists where it really mattered. And to me, I think the kind of gains we had received, that was just because of that political consensus. As long as we are united, our political parties are united, our people on ground are united against the menace of terrorism, there is no reason that, of course, Pakistan can't survive it. And when it comes to, of course, consensus, then harmony between the provincial governments and the central government, that is pivotal as well. And we know that in recent times, the obviously, armed forces of Pakistan, the kind of the number of IBOs, the increase in the number of IBOs we have been seeing in recent past, that is an evidence that the security forces are working day and night to, of course, make sure that Pakistan is secure enough. This is up to the political will and political parties as well, that they have to just stand with the security forces united against this menace.
Definitely. Farrukh Pitafi, your comments as well. As, of course, we're talking about the Apex Committee meeting, the Prime Minister emphasized on a coordinated approach and, of course, consensus between the federal government and the provincial governments. Political stability is, of course, need of the hour when we talk about of course, a secure, stable environment in the country. How do you comment on that?
Thank you very much for this question. It is also very important. I think that first of all, hats off to the Prime Minister and the Army Chief and all people who attended the Apex Committee, because I see a clear vision of tomorrow where terrorism has no space in this country. And the way they have been attacking, terrorists have been attacking Pakistan, it is unacceptable. I think when it comes to political stability, I have not seen any political instability. Remember that when you have political instability, usually you are doubtful about the future of the government. That has not happened. Whatever was happening on streets, it was essentially political movements, disturbing a social, peace, right? Because of that, whatever was happening, it was mostly a social crisis, it wasn't a political one. So hopefully in coming days we see some kind of this dialogue that has started actually holding and consensus emerging on all things. My tomorrow's column that I wrote today is called Grand National Dialogue. So we should be looking for such a thing. I hope in coming days we see something bigger of that sort also. But let me suggest certain changes to nomenclature as things are right now. Can we change? We know it is National Anti-Counter-Terrorism Authority and it is national, but can we change its name from NACTA to ACTA so that it starts acting and be more proactive? Similarly, NAP, National Action Plan, anything that starts with an N ends up being somehow crossed somewhere or stopped. So make it an action plan, right? At this moment, I think I'm once again going to bring up, and this is a new program in which on two different subjects, I'm using the dreaded A word, that is accountability. Recently, when DGISPR actually spoke to the press, there also he actually highlighted the fact that the country had actually made so much progress in the war against terrorism and almost defeated terrorists. Who brought it back? I need answers, and there should be accountability. These people who are dying today, who are dying to save you and me, the heroes that are there, they should not have to die. They wouldn't have died had we finished the job back then. Whosoever compromised at that time has to be held accountable. Definitely. If you don't, you let go people and let people who are actually by collusion murderers or my heroes walk free. That is not acceptable. But having said that, consensus was achieved in 2014. The question is, what were the forces that were actively trying to undermine it, and why those forces actually survived till the time they managed to dent Pakistan's struggle so effectively? These are questions that we have to focus on. I think biggest problem, and that again Faisal and I should be actually really, and you also, be not very proud of this fact that it is precisely the media that has dropped the ball, clergy and the media, because most of media men are either Taliban apologists, TTP apologists, or they are somehow, they have some sympathy for terrorists rather than states' own heroes. So that also has to be held accountable. Those people who kept on spreading conspiracy theories when we were fighting terrorism, and they were actively undermining the state's own narrative, those people, I mean, all these things are on tape, right? Everything was on aired. Pembra is there, so many other institutions are there. Just actually audit those tapes and hold people accountable. Why were they spreading so much hate and propaganda at that time? Who were they serving? So why is it that those people still are trying to actually set the narrative in the country? If you don't hold these things closer to your heart and these people close to fire, you are not going to solve the problem in the long run.
Definitely, and accountability is very crucial, as emphasized upon, and food for thought, a lot given. And of course, we hope with new days to come, we hear a lot of good news as with this clear policy and this consensus that is being reached. Of course, better days to come for Pakistan. I'd like to thank you all, gentlemen, for being part of this conversation. Brigadier Nawaz, Senior Analyst, Farrukh Pitafi, Senior Analyst, and Raja Faisal, Geopolitical Analyst. Thank you all for your time and being part of the conversation. To wrap up from the debate for today, see you same time on Monday. Till then, take care.